Hello there, I'm Nikki from Haymakers HQ, and this is How WWE Should Book, where I take an angle from now to the future and challenge WWE to do it better because I'm a plagiarist. Ding! So Finn Balor on the main roster has been kind of a revelation, hasn't he? Like, in his first night, he earned himself a world title match at SummerSlam against Seth Rollins for a new world title. Like, pretty good for your first day in the office, I'd say. And if he wins the title at SummerSlam, I think that's a new record for quickest ascent from debut to world champion. That would be really cool. But what are they going to do with Finn? Like, his run in NXT was good, if a little bit safe. But with a character like Finn Balor, you could do so much more than he did in NXT. And what about this whole Balor Club thing? It's been present for months now, but really it's just been a t-shirt design so far. So what are they going to do with that? Well, I got some ideas. WWE, do it better. We begin at SummerSlam with the WWE World Championship match between Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler. Dean wins that match thanks in large part to a distraction by Bray Wyatt. Bray spends the next few weeks trying to coax Ziggler to his side, and this leads to a triple threat match at Backlash. Ambrose versus Ziggler versus Wyatt, which Ambrose wins by pinning Wyatt. We'll come back to that in a bit. Back to SummerSlam. AJ Styles fights John Cena. Styles is on his own, but is successful in his crusade to beat up John Cena and wins clean over Cena. Cena starts wondering if he's lost his edge and leaves for a few months where he can go film season 2 of American Grit. Then, at Backlash, Styles gets a win over someone. Let's go with Apollo Crews. It just needs to be someone to keep Styles' momentum going. After the triple threat title match, Styles attacks Ambrose, laying him out, and says that he wants the title. That match is set for the next SmackDown pay-per-view, which I hear will be No Mercy. But more on that later. We still got some Raw stuff to cover. Back to SummerSlam, this time for the tag team titles. Gallows and Anderson beat the New Day. They're down one Big E, so it's just Kofi and Xavier, and they just can't hang with Gallows and Anderson. The Club win the tag team titles. And then we get to the main event. Balor versus Rollins for the Universal title. Balor wins clean. No distractions, no tricks. Finn straight up wins. Rollins is angry, but non-confrontational, and starts walking to the back when he's ambushed by Gallows and Anderson. They throw him back in the ring where Finn starts barking orders to Gallows and Anderson. Boot of Doom, Magic Killer, Coup de Grace, 1916, Dead Rollins. Balor Club is here, and the double turn is complete. The crowd can finally start rooting for Rollins, which they've wanted to do since before he even got hurt, and Balor is still new enough on the roster that you can kinda do whatever you want with him. But why would Finn do this? Why would Finn, who's been babyface for his entire NXT and WWE run, all of a sudden turn heel? Well, whenever Finn Balor enters a new promotion, two things happen. Number one, he earns gold. And number two, he has someone watching his back. We know about all the stuff that happened in Bullet Club. He had like the Young Bucks and Gallows and Anderson and Bad Luck Fale and the Tongan guy, all watching his back. And of course, he won a bunch of junior heavyweight titles and tag team gold, blah, blah, blah. He got a lot of gold. And then there was his run in NXT, of course, longest reigning NXT champion in history, but also at various points, he had both Hideo Itami and Samoa Joe watching his back, but for one reason or another, those alliances fell through. But now, he's on the main roster in the WWE. This is his hardest task yet, and he has the gold. And he wants to make sure he keeps the gold, so he's got himself a couple of heaters to make sure that things go his way and he can run the show the way he sees fit. On the next Raw, you get the usual post-SummerSlam debut, Shinsuke Nakamura, who debuts after losing his NXT Championship match to Samoa Joe. We move on to Raw's next pay-per-view, Clash of the Champions, where Gallows and Anderson retain their tag team titles in the rematch against the New Day, this time with all three New Day members there, but Finn Balor helps Gallows and Anderson retain. While in the main event, a face Rollins gets a rematch with a heel Balor, and like in the tag team match, outside interference from Gallows and Anderson assure that Balor retains. Next comes No Mercy, where Dolph Ziggler starts feuding with Bray Wyatt. That can go for a few months with a possible recruitment into the family for Dolph, but But in the main event, AJ Styles fights Dean Ambrose. Dean's closing in on a win when Gallows and Anderson's music hits. They come out, distract Ambrose long enough for Styles to hit the phenomenal forearm, and then the Styles clash on Ambrose. Styles gets the pin and wins the title. Gallows, Anderson, and Styles start beating down Ambrose when who returns to make the save but John Cena! Okay, enough of that. And the pay-per-view ends with Ambrose and Cena in the ring shouting to Styles, the new WWE World Champion and the newest member of Balor Club. Doesn't that sound great? The next pay-per-view is Raw's Hell in a Cell. Rollins is tired of Gallows and Anderson interfering in his matches, so he challenges Gallows and Anderson for a tag title match at Hell in a Cell. And when they accept, Rollins' tag team partner is revealed, Roman Reigns. Rollins tries to bury the hatchet with Roman, telling him this Balor Club threat is only going to grow, and he wants to stop it before it becomes too big to stop. Reigns begrudgingly agrees, and the match is set. During the match, they try to get on the same page, but it starts out pretty rocky, with lots of shouting between the two. They do start getting on the same page towards the end, but it's not enough, and Balor Club retains the tag titles. Meanwhile, in the main event feud, all three members of the New Day win a #1 contenders battle royale, and after talking with each other for a second, Big E and Xavier eliminate themselves to let Kofi get a shot at the Universal title. Then we get the match at Hell in a Cell, Kofi versus Finn Balor. Big E and Xavier help neutralize the threat of Gallows and Anderson, but Finn is still able to get the win over Kofi in clean fashion. After the match, AJ Styles attacks Big E from behind, and the beatdown on the New Day is on. And in the end, the 4 Balor Club members take out all 3 New Day members, and they are out for a few months. And now we come to Survivor Series, and the writing is on the wall for what's coming. All 4 Balor Club members start showing up on both shows to beat down Rollins and Reigns on Raw and Ambrose and Cena on SmackDown. And eventually, Rollins and Reigns show up on SmackDown to stop one of the Balor Club's beatdowns, and the main event for Survivor Series is set. A 4-on-4 elimination tag team match. Balor Club versus The Shield and John Cena. Styles eliminates Rollins with a Styles Clash, and Gallows and Anderson take out Cena with a Boot of Doom and a Magic Killer. But then, Reigns and Ambrose begin a comeback. Ambrose eliminates Anderson, and Reigns eliminates Gallows. And all of a sudden, it's back to being even. Reigns and Ambrose versus Balor and Styles. Reigns and Ambrose put up a good fight, but unfortunately, they're both eliminated, and Balor Club has just beaten The Shield and John Cena. Balor Club gives another beatdown to all involved, and they end the pay-per-view standing tall, holding both world titles and the tag titles. Now, up to this point, the GMs of Raw and SmackDown have been fine with Balor Club showing up on shows they aren't signed to because they've been building towards a cross-brand pay-per-view. But now that Survivor Series is over, the GMs are laying down the law, threatening lengthy suspensions for showing up on the rival show. And because of their performance in the elimination tag match, Ambrose and Reigns are getting title shots against Styles at SmackDown's TLC and Balor at Raw's Roadblock, respectively. With no one having his back, Styles drops the World Championship back to Ambrose at TLC. On the next SmackDown, Styles is shown heading to the arena, and he walks by the rest of Balor Club, and they're pretty disappointed in Styles. Balor says that he'll beat Reigns without the help of Gallows and Anderson just to send a message to Styles. And at Roadblock, he does just that, pinning Roman Reigns clean. You'll notice that quite a few of these wins by Balor Club have been pretty much clean. Balor over Rollins, Balor over Kofi, Gallows and Anderson over Rollins and Reigns, the Survivor Series match, and now Balor over Reigns. All clean wins that make Balor Club look like a bunch of warriors who can all get the job done, instead of a bunch of mid-level guys who can't win without cheating. They just like cheating sometimes. Also at Roadblock, Gallows and Anderson retain the tag team gold, this time against Enzo and Cass, and surprise, surprise, they win clean. On the build to the Royal Rumble, Gallows and Anderson go on a tear through the tag team division. They beat Neville and Sin Cara, Enzo and Cass, and other tag teams every single week. Then, at the Royal Rumble, Gallows and Anderson issue an open challenge to the entire roster for the tag team gold. And then, oh, Los Angeles! Don't you dare be sour! Clap for your soon-to-be 3-time champs and feel the power! The New Day are finally back and are at full strength, and finally, they get the best of Gallows and Anderson, and they take back the tag team titles. Meanwhile, in the 2 world title matches, Dean defeats AJ Styles in a ladder match for the World Championship, and Balor retains against the man who surprisingly won the number 1 contendership, Cesaro. Cesaro gets really close, but an interference by Gallows and Anderson causes Balor to pick up the win. Oh, and there's the Royal Rumble match, which is won by Shinsuke Nakamura. We are now on the road to WrestleMania, and the once dominant Balor Club is starting to stumble. Only Finn still has his championship, and he barely beats Cesaro. Finn goes to Mick Foley and tells him to trade for AJ Styles so that Balor Club can be a cohesive unit on one show. After some rough negotiations that include Gallows and Anderson getting in Foley's face, Foley agrees to get Styles on Raw, and the next day, Daniel Bryan informs AJ Styles that he's going to Raw in exchange for Cesaro and Bubba Ray Dudley. Oh, the Dudley boys split up in this scenario. Just throwing that out there. So, now that all of Balor Club is on Raw, they can focus on the Royal Rumble winner, Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura goes to Mick Foley and pleads with him to make his world title match a one-on-one affair without the rest of Balor Club. Foley isn't too happy with Balor Club and tells Naka that if he can beat AJ Styles at Raw's last pay-per-view before WrestleMania, probably either No Way Out or Fastlane, he'll get his wish, and Styles, Gallows, and Anderson will be banned from ringside. And at the pay-per-view, Nakamura loses. It's his first loss on the main roster, and Styles pins Nakamura clean. Nakamura will have to fight Balor with all of Balor Club at ringside for Mania. For the other matches on the card, Kofi and Xavier retain their tag team titles against Gallows and Anderson, and Big E rides the momentum of the New Day's win at the Royal Rumble to a title match against Finn Balor, which Balor wins with help from Anderson and Gallows. We're now closing in on WrestleMania, and Styles is back in the good graces of Balor. However, Gallows and Anderson are starting to lose points in Balor's eyes, thanks to back-to-back pay-per-view losses. In a match against Enzo and Cass, Gallows and Anderson lose, and Balor flips his lid, and in his demonic rage, kicks Gallows and Anderson out for their constant losing. Styles is not a fan of that, since he worked really hard to make sure Gallows and Anderson would be at Mania, and now a lot of that advantage is gone. Balor Club is falling apart. Finally, we get to WrestleMania. Styles faces Sami Zayn for the United States Championship, and Styles wins the gold. So now he's both a world champion, and he's won some gold at WrestleMania. Who's getting buried now? And then in the main event, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Finn Balor for the Universal title. Despite AJ being at ringside to help Finn, Nakamura overcomes the odds and wins the Universal title. After the match, Styles drops Balor with a phenomenal forearm, turning face, and after Nakamura wins the rematch, Balor and Styles can feud over the US Championship, and after that, Balor Club is no more. And that is how I would book Balor Club. And really, it does so many important things that need to happen right now. For starters, AJ Styles and Finn Balor become established stars who have won the world title before. You move people like the New Day, Cesaro, and Shinsuke Nakamura to the top of the card and have them competing regularly for the world title. You keep Roman Reigns relevant into the world title picture, which WWE really wants to do anyway, along with Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose and John Cena. Plus, Bray Wyatt's been building up through SmackDown's mid-card, and he'll be ready to become a force come the post-Mania season. And it really just does everything you need. And yeah, there's going to be some people who eat some clean losses, but at this point, there's really nobody on the main roster who's absolutely untouchable, not even Reigns or Cena. Like, these clean losses are a little bit necessary in order to establish these people as main event talent, and it really doesn't just drop them completely out of the card. So, yep, that is how I would book Balor Club. Beat that, Blampier!